If you'd asked me at the turn of the year whether I thought that Bristol could legitimately be in with a chance of winning the title this season, I would have thought you were following the wrong sport. A lot of criticism has been levied at Pat Lam, from myself included, as the underperformance over the last season or two since that dramatic semi final loss against Harlequins has really soured this hype train. Despite having all the tools at his disposal with a deep squad, star names, a lack of injuries, especially comparatively to the rest of the league, and a huge potential following, things just weren't firing at Bristol. And I'd go so far as to say they were comfortably the third worst side in the league. However, Bristol now find themselves sat on 40 points, with the second highest points difference in the league, and just 4 points away from second place. They've won the same number of games as Bath, Saracens, and Harlequins above them, and sit a hair ahead of Exeter, Leicester, and Sale. It's absolutely unprecedented to see seven sides all on the same number of wins and losses, and not a single side with over 100 points difference in that top six this far into the season. So, how have Bristol created this late charge? Well, they've won five of their last six Premiership games, which would really rank them at the top of the form table, with notable victories against Northampton Saints, Bath, and Sale along the way. Compare that with their form in October and November, which saw them pick up just three wins in eight, and suddenly the resurgence is obvious. But what has changed in that time? Well, Bristol have always been able to score points, and they've rarely missed a beat in attack since Lamb took over. But they are sat on a whopping 412 points scored so far this season, which ranks highest in the league. They've also scored 55 tries in that time, which is just two off the league high set by Saracens. However, they don't have a single player in the top five for individual tries scored, and not a single player in overall points scored. Their attacking ability is just so well distributed, with creative and finishing threats coming from everywhere around the field. Bradbury is shockingly their highest scorer at the moment, with a gaggle of players around him all having scored between two and four tries. That makes it incredibly difficult for defences to predict where the running threats are coming from. They've made nearly 1,000 metres more than Sale and Leicester so far this season, who sit next to them in the table, against a similar number of carries. They're beating defenders once every five carries, and they are making a clean break once every 15 carries. That's averaging out at 120 carries, 25 defenders beaten, and 14 clean breaks per game. A league high. They do also concede a bunch of turnovers in attack, though, getting rolled over sometimes upwards of 10 times per game, which is largely down to isolated players after they've punched the ball up the middle. However, I don't think it's just their attack that has managed to put them in this spot. It's their defence. Their defensive numbers would put them third in the league behind Northampton and Saracens, with a tackle success rate of 88% and just 259 tackles missed so far this season. Context, Harlequins centres alone have dropped off over 190 tackles this season. They sit in fourth for number of tackles in the league too, with 1,862, which sits ahead of Saracens and just behind Sale. However, similarly to try scoring, it's not individual efforts by any means. They don't have a single player in the top five for tackles made this season, and their top tackling player has made 50 tackles less than the league leader, Ernst van Ryn. But the underlying stats don't stop there, as Bristol's set piece has taken a massive step forward this season, which used to be an area in which was much more of a functionality than a weapon. That English international front row are currently winning 90% of their scrums, which puts them in the top two in the league. Their lineouts are even better, with a huge 94% of lineouts successfully gathered, in which we have to shout out the form of the likes of Joe Batley, Josh Caulfield, and Bradbury for contributing here. The discipline is pretty good too, with no red cards brandished yet this season and just the 7 yellows in that time and only 150 penalties conceded. Their kicking game is something that they are working on too, and it's largely based off of Harry Randall, who has kicked the ball out of hand the second most from anyone in the league, putting his boot to ball over 10 times per game. He's only second to Gus Waugh in that respect, and ahead of the Premiership's top operators in Spencer, Varney, and James. They do need to improve their kicking success from the tee dramatically, though, as a 73% ratio sits them towards the bottom of the pack, and puts into perspective how many more points they should be scoring. So, with all of this incredibly positive and dominant information, why haven't they done better throughout the season? Well, they are still a little bit enigmatic. They've actually only got 8 bonus points this season, which is strange for a side that scores so many points. That's less than Gloucester, is level pegging with Exeter, and substantially less than Bath. We can point out a lot of missed opportunities this season to capitalise there. 3 tries rather than 4 against the Falcons, missed losing bonus points against the likes of Saracens, Sale, and Exeter. Unfortunately, when Bristol get beaten, they struggle to take any spoils into the next game. Their losses are also really interesting stylistically, as they've managed to do the double over league leaders Northampton and have traded wins and losses with the likes of Bath and Sale. However, they did lose twice to Exeter though, and both times they were soundly beaten. And I'd say the reason for that is the channel work and phase play of Exeter, who keep the ball in play and tight for longer periods than anybody else in the league. We've seen them frustrate Bath, Toulon, and Munster by playing an uber physical, collision heavy, and tight channel game plan. Bristol are also a little susceptible around the fringes, with the likes of Sinclair, Laheath, and Dunn having their own highlight reel for defensive mistakes and lapses around the breakdown. And that's where I'd say you probably beat this side. They want to play rugby, they have versatility, they have pace, power, and a great 9 through 13 list of attacking threats. But if you can win the territory battle and force this Bristol side to make narrow, hard yards, focusing in particular on kicking the ball out of play to reset the game, that sluggishness of ball really contains how they want to play. Bristol are also the eighth worst side playing at home this season, which is something that has characterised this Premiership season for a lot of clubs. Four sides have only lost once from home this season, two sides have lost twice, but Bristol sit way down the pecking order, having lost three times at Ashton Gate. Despite this, no side has taken more points away from home than Bristol, having taken 20 points from home games and 20 points from away games. They also have the highest points difference away from home, 42 points higher than Northampton and 43 points higher than Quins. Bristol do have a nasty run of fixtures though to finish this season. At home to Newcastle where you'd expect to win, but then away to Leicester, home to Saracens, and then away to Quins. Realistically, I think they lose 3 out of those 4 games, with the match that they really need to target being that final day away game at the Stoop. Quins have never been more brittle in defence, and Bristol have never been more potent in attack, so I'd say they would want to encourage Quins to fall into the trap of playing too much. But in actuality, I think Bristol probably need 12 points from their next possible 20. That forces Quins and Saracens into needing 2 bonus point wins, and I think Bristol could then scrape in on either points difference or by matching the bonus points of the folks above them. What do you think of Bristol so far this season? Make sure that you put your suggestions and your perspectives in the comment section down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe for more. If you're watching this on TikTok, please follow for more rugby content.